Wolfie Universe, thanks for the $5. Says, are you sure you won't cover the Hunter Avallone thing? It's only 5 minutes. Since you donated, Wolfie Universe, you know what? We'll give it a look. We'll give it a look. We got nothing else to cover. Neopronouns. Can you identify as a deer?
So by now, most of you are aware about the drama involving RGR versus Doe. I reviewed some of the debate. It was such a train wreck. Honestly, it was just a mess. I'm not even that interested in going over that drama at this point, to be fair. But although the controversy in and of itself is multifaceted with plenty of layers, I want to hyper-focus on the concept of somebody identifying as a deer and asking to be referred to with it/its pronouns. So RGR debated this person named Doe, and this person named Doe claims to identify as a deer, and they request to be referred to as it or its for their pronouns. My first thought when I hear that is, well, this sounds fucking stupid. However, why? Well, first and foremost, what is gender? Okay? So generally, gender refers to socially constructed expectations and behaviors that are correlated to one's sex. This means we assign certain roles to people based on their sexual characteristics, but gender is not caused by sexual characteristics. Although gender is socially constructed, it's still very real and has very real consequences on societies across the globe. In fact, gender specifically is what dictates desired pronouns. My understanding is that there's a difference between identity and gender. You can identify as a gender is a form of identification, but everything you identify with or as is not a gender. So, for example, I can identify as a Christian or as a sports fan, but these identities aren't my gender, and they don't have any bearing on my pronouns, right? So gender is ultimately socialized. This is why gender changes over time. We create gender through our interaction with each other. Females are socialized to be women. Males are socialized to be men. We create the gender expectations and societal roles. Gender only exists as a result of human-to-human interaction. We don't socialize deer. We don't socialize deer to be deer in the same way we socialize people to be men or women. The socialization is gender.
Wait, can we just, like, one of these days, can I just, like, ask... I'm, like, genuine... Like, I'm gonna be completely honest. I do not pretend to understand identifying as a deer. I just don't care to understand it, frankly. From my understanding, the way that gender works, I don't need to understand the whole deer gender thing to be cool with it. You know, like, I don't need to understand it. Like, I'm not interested in policing other people's identity. I'm not interested in, like, starting a moral panic over somebody identifying by pronouns that aren't, you know, very traditional. Like, it's just not my interest. I'm not down to be like, I'm not here to, like, police and gatekeep people. It's not my objective. That's not what I'm here for. Like, I don't get this whole discourse.
And that doesn't exist for humans and deers. Deer are deer because of their biology, not because of their interactions with humans. So you can probably guess that, yeah, I'm not exactly sold on the whole Bambi gender thing. I mean, I could be wrong, yes, I could be, but I have yet to hear a single compelling or good argument whatsoever. Okay, and then finally, when it comes to the it/its pronouns, I find that to be really silly also, and this is why, okay?
Why?
Pronouns have direct utility. This is why I argue in favor of using trans people's desired pronouns. It's because the medical advice for trans people is to socially transition. So it's only efficient to refer to the person wearing lipstick with long hair and a dress as a woman. When we hear she, he, or their...
Yeah, but Hunter, like 2.5 years ago, you wouldn't have even agreed with that, right? Like, you would have made a very similar argument to this a couple years ago, back when you were still a conservative, in regards to like gender and the utility that pronouns serve in our society or whatever, right? Like, you would probably make a not too dissimilar argument from this, right? I don't know. I'm not interested in a moral panic over pronouns.
At minimum, we know someone else is referring to another human. If I hear someone say it, I'm instantly assuming they aren't talking about a person. And this is literally the point of pronouns and utility. And trying to turn it into some kind of a legit pronoun serves no societal use at all. So pronouns can't just be specific to an individual. If you do that, congratulations, you have literally destroyed the entire point, the entire concept of pronouns. You've obliterated it. So that's why I am not a big fan of this dear gender, and that's also why I'm not going to be using its pronouns anytime soon. This of course doesn't mean you should like harass or dehumanize anyone who has a different opinion on gender.
So the issue with this is that this is in every way conceivable, and I mean I'd be happy to talk to Hunter about it in like either off stream in a one-on-one conversation or even on stream if he wants to do it there. I don't want to like burn any bridges or anything over this, but I mean I feel like it's worth saying. This is identical to like Isaac Butterfield's arguments when it comes to trans people, like literally identical. The argument that Isaac Butterfield makes is he's not transphobic. He's not doing anything like that's bad. You know, he just believes that like the trans ideology or whatever has gone a little bit too far, and that like there's a little bit, you know, maybe we need to like. I'm not actually transphobic. I just have an issue with like changing the definitions of words and stuff. I don't know. My worry is that like 30, 20, something like that years down the road, we're gonna end up like finding out that the whole like dear gender stuff, things like that, have like a shit ton of like at least as much scientific backing as like trans people who are more traditional now have, and we're gonna look back at it and be like, ah, fuck, you know? No, it's not. This literally just is not true. Oh, hey, Hunter Avallone. Hunter's in YouTube chat. Wait, how did you find? We're just watching Destiny debate. Zan let me in. All right. Do you want to do it in my Discord? Do you want to do it in a call? Like a one-on-one call? I'll message you. Is it okay if I call on Discord? Oh, yeah, he's calling. Hold on, let me turn off. Hey, Hunter.
Hello, how you doing?
Oh, you're a little bit loud. Hold on.
Oh, hold on. Oh shit,
I'm just turning you down on my end. I had you turned up to like 200.
It's okay.
I think like last time I was in a call with you, you might have been really loud or really quiet, so I turned you up like crazy, and then you talked just now, and your mic is normal, so it just was really loud.
Yeah. Well, I literally just clicked your stream for fun to see your review of the Destiny versus actual Jake debate, and next thing I know, I see you're watching my video, and I don't agree at all with what you're saying that this is comparable to like the sort of transphobia thing. And if you would allow me to explain, maybe you can change my mind on this. Now, in the video, I said I'm willing to be like, you know, like proven wrong here. Like this isn't something that I'm like, I am dying on this hill today kind of thing. But rather it's more just like the trans issue came from misunderstanding definitions involving sex and gender, right? So I wrongly, when I was conservative, I wrongly conflated sex and genders being the same thing, which was fallacious and caused like a fuck ton of these issues, right? So conservatives are wrong in their definitions there. But I'm not making I feel as though that's an entirely separate issue, whereas I'm arguing like the trans thing is separate definitions, whereas this is about creating and like utilizing pronouns in an entirely different way, in a way that really does serve no utility.
Okay, I want to ask about the no utility point first, because that point, maybe I'm just thinking about it wrong, but that point specifically doesn't make much sense to me, right? Because from my understanding, the use of pronouns, for the most part, they're pronouns. We use them in our grammar to refer, like, she went and she picked up the trash, they went out and got the groceries, we use it in sentences, we have those reasons, but I don't know how those its pronouns have no utility. When I say
because
it was harassed by destiny, then people understand it.
It's harassed by destiny? No, it was harassed by destiny. It is uniquely not a human pronoun, right? So when I'm saying that it refers to utility, what I'm talking about is that if I'm sitting here having this conversation with you and I say, yeah, he said this thing and then he said that, oh, and it's over there. You're no longer thinking that I'm referring to a human. You're now thinking I'm referring to an object. And now, it's true that maybe after a while, these pronouns can evolve and change, and now people start to associate it's with also being people. But if you have to then say, oh, well, when I'm saying it's, that's actually that person's pronouns, that's their preferred pronouns, blah, blah, blah. At that point, haven't you sort of defeated the point of pronouns? I mean, you respect trans people's pronouns because it serves not only, of course, but a major reason or an argument that I always pose to conservatives is also the utility side of things of respecting trans people's pronouns.
Oh yeah, I was gonna write some stuff on Notepad just because I didn't want to forget anything. I'm kind of stoned right now, and my memory's not 100%.
I'm pretty stoned right now too, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay, first, let me give you some background on why we were watching the video because I think it's somewhat relevant. We were watching the Destiny. So I've been live for 6 hours and 8 minutes. We started with like a couple segments, and then I watched the Destiny debate, and that went on for quite a few hours. And then someone donated $5 and was like, Zan, please, before you end stream, watch Hunter Avallone's new video on Doe's pronouns. I need to see your thoughts on it. And I was like, okay. So I booted it up, and okay, so you mentioned before that maybe pronouns such as it, its, or identities like dear could become really socially accepted and sort of normalized down the road. But that we're just not at that point right now, so it serves no utility. But the argument that I would make is, well, not only is that a very similar argument to that of transphobes. I'm not saying it's exactly the same because obviously transphobes are
no,
way
it's
more
not.
off.
It only
but where are those?
Like it is, but it's not actually. Because transphobes are wrongly assuming that when they say a trans woman is a woman, that means their biology somehow changes because they're conflating sex and gender. That's a misunderstanding of definitions. Whereas this, saying you identify as a deer, these are two separate things, right? So there's the neopronouns issue, which is I'm making a utility-based argument there. But when it comes to the gender identity, or as far as identifying as a deer, we would then have to look at what is gender and how does that actually apply. And I don't think that there is such a thing as a deer gender. So I guess I know I'm kind of being all over the place too. It's just there's two separate issues that I feel like we're kind of talking about, but we're sort of talking past.
No, I get it. I think the thing that I was going to mention right before you started talking was that you're not wrong about this being really radical, or this being just not something that we would consider generally like reason, like just something that we would generally believe to be reasonable in our society at this current point.
No,
but the argument that I would make is that we're occupying like the most radically far left communities around. Like even you, and you're like more of a soc dem kind of lib type. Even you are occupying some of the most left wing spaces online.
I know,
we both are.
but
So aren't we like the group to kind of start to normalize that, to sort of change society's like
because we need to
beliefs when it
talk
comes
about
to that?
No, because it depends on what it is that we're pushing to normalize. And if we're like, this in my opinion is a complete misunderstanding of gender. Like, what is gender? I mean, that's what I went over in my video, and how gender is created is a result of human to human interaction. That's what it means when we say that gender is socially constructed. So I just feel like if gender exists as a result of human to human interaction, and gender is largely socialized, people are not, or deers are not socialized. There is no social construction of a deer gender. That doesn't exist at all. Like, a deer is dictated by its biology, but humans have sex and then gender. They have that extra layer there.
Well, yeah, but the issue is, obviously, this is true of anything that's socially constructed, is that we made these things up. Like, its pronouns and the utility that they serve are completely, and every other pronoun, are completely made up by us and by our, like, there's no, like, overall, like, rules of the universe that say there is she, her, they, and its pronouns can only be used to refer to inanimate objects. Like, these are things that we've kind of come up with. Now, you can argue it would be confusing now in our current state of things, and it would maybe not serve as much utility. I don't necessarily believe that, because I've not had issues in regards to utility of using those pronouns. But where I find you have...
But, like, I think that you do, but, like, okay, here's the thing, is you're right that maybe if it's like, well, just referring to doe as its pronouns or whatever isn't a big deal. But then let's think of, like, what this means, and in a broader sense, that absolutely would negatively affect utility. And not only that, if you're using pronouns that are only unique to that person, what's actually the difference between their pronouns and a nickname?
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. What do you mean by utility? I think I'm just kind of misunderstanding you here. What do you mean by utility and pronouns?
Okay, so when I say utility and pronouns, I'm talking about, like, just the general function that language serves. So when I'm having this conversation with you, and I say, he said this, you know that I'm talking about another person, at minimum, who said this. Generally a man. Now, we can argue about what kind of different pronouns could be added or whatever. That's probably fine. But if I say, yeah, it's over there, you're instantly assuming it's not a human. It, the way that our language works as of right now, refers to a non-human, an object, an inanimate object, or like an animal or something. And this is where transphobes are wrong, is they'll say, well, when we say she, her, we're referring to people with vaginas. No, you're not. Shut the fuck up. That's not true. You're referring to people that generally present and fit what we consider to be a woman's gender, right? Or a gender, like, I know I'm probably not explaining this 100%, but I think that's the key distinction.
It's all good. It's all good. I understand where you're coming from. I guess when it comes to, so we have there's two different, like, discussions here, technically, the pronouns and the gender. So there's the identity. So there's obviously the identity of deer, and we can get into that in a moment because that's fairly complicated, and the pronouns of its. Now, in regards to using its to refer to like somebody who is a person, I don't feel like it's as rigid as you're making it out to be, because I mean, we refer to like dogs by it, or sometimes we refer to dogs by he or her, and they're animals.
Zan, but Zan, that's proving my point. You're right.
Is it?
When we refer to dogs as it's unique and they're not human, right? That's the utility that it serves. Is if I say, yeah, it's out there barking, then you're probably, oh, he's talking about a dog. Okay, yeah. But if a human, other than being personally asked specifically to be called by it, if you were to call a human being it's instantly seen as like really dehumanizing because of the way that word, because of the way that our language is currently like set up.
Yeah, but to somebody who uses its pronouns, they would be just as offended by, you know, any other pronouns. But at least in the case of doe, who we're more specifically kind of referring to, at least in my experience with them, they just kind of say like, oh, I'd appreciate if you'd use my pronouns. I mean, out of respect at least, even if you're not like on board with the neopronouns thing. I guess the issue that I have is that it feels like with the whole discussion of identity, I feel like people are sort of, from my understanding, Doe doesn't unironically identify as a deer. Like Doe doesn't actually believe they're a deer. I think more so the whole thing is like, I'm modeling my aesthetic after a deer, like much like a person who's very like, I don't know, like.
Okay, but see, that's fine. But then
like something
is that?
along those
but does
lines.
that mean that all? I guess if you were to argue that gender is just an aesthetic, which I guess that would be an entirely different argument, and I don't know if we
though, right?
Yeah, that's a separate thing. But like
identity and gender are kind of different, right? Because I actually don't know, like,
wait, so
to
their
what
gender
degree
is
the
not at
Doe.
all connected to a deer. You're saying they don't have a deer gender at all.
I'm not entirely sure if that's what they would say. I actually don't know.
Okay. I mean, yeah,
I'm
I
actually
guess I
not
could
like
be wrong.
100%
It just,
sure.
I understand like the general like, well, if it's what they prefer, you should respect their pronouns kind of thing, and I'm fine with that. I'm not necessarily like, I'm not trying to spur on hate or animosity towards anyone at all. I'm just rather trying to like, I guess okay, let me try to put it this way. I have yet to hear an argument in favor of a deer gender or using its pronouns for another human being. Like, I have yet to hear a good argument, and that's not a slight against you. Like, of course, I again recognize.
Well, okay. I can put forward. This is like the best one that I have, and it's sort of a question, I guess. So, why would you use she/her pronouns to refer to a trans woman who doesn't pass very well? Like to you and most people, they probably like would get like he/him on the street. Like what is the point? Like what isn't? Why
So
would
the
you
answer
use
there
the
you would
preferred
say would be
pronouns
out of
there?
respect, right?
I mean, out of respect, or at the very least, in order to like mitigate harm to the individuals who identify that way. Like, if we want to look at it through a purely utilitarian lens, we can do that. And obviously, in the case of Doe, we're talking about someone who seems to very sincerely
No, because I feel like if we want to take
believe
a
in their
pure
identity.
No, I feel like
mean,
if we want to take a purely utilitarian argument, we could also argue about the negative effects that like referring to people as its could have, as far as like the social utility design, like the social utility related to language.
but like,
I feel
what,
like you could.
what realistic like situation could that occur in?
I already explained to you in the way that the way that pronouns are supposed to serve a form of social utility. And also, I recognize that, yeah, you should like respect people's pronouns if they don't pass or whatever, but the reason I brought up the medical thing, I'm not trans med, by the way, but rather I bring that up again because if trans people are suffering from gender dysphoria, then the medical advice there is the first thing they are advised to do is to socially transition. And so in making a certain effort to appear that way, like, I guess how many trans people are really unironically walking around asking to be referred to by she, her pronouns, but like look completely masculine? Like, I'm sure they exist. And again, we can get down into that nitty gritty, I guess, but generally speaking, I feel that the argument of utility is a rather solid one. I mean, I always point to like Blair White, of course, but I guess that you would say that since she passes, that's not really quite comparable.
I mean, like, I don't need like a specific example of like a trans person who's been in the example that I brought up. I'm sure that has happened once. There's been one trans person who doesn't pass particularly well that has asked that they had that pronoun used for them, and their friends or family or acquaintances proceeded to do so out of respect and out of even if they don't themselves believe that their friend passes as whatever gender they identify as, they do it because they're supporting their friend, and you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Like, you're helping your friend out. You don't want to like add further
Yes,
upset,
I agree with
you know?
this. I agree with this like on an interpersonal level, but I'm also trying to have a conversation a little bit more broadly related, right? So like,
Yeah.
I guess we'd really have to go back, I think, to can a deer be your gender? Because I was my understanding that the reason that they want its pronouns is because they also identify as a deer, and deers are animals, right?
So I don't know, like, I actually legitimately, I'm not kidding, I don't know if Doe's like identity, if it's like more of like a broader identity thing separate from gender, and gender's not really relevant to it much. and that's like the deer thing, or if it literally is a
But
gender
doesn't- wait,
situation,
but
I would love to
hold on.
talk to it about it. But
Hold on, I'm getting
that's-
confused now because I thought that gender is what dictates largely pronoun usage, right? So if someone's non-binary, they might go by they, them pronouns, right? So usually it's the gender that dictates
Possibly,
the
yeah.
pronouns. So it's my assumption, or it's my understanding, actually, that
But also,
doe
wouldn't the like if
identifies
we're,
as deer gender, and that's what's dictating the desire for its pronouns.
yeah,
and
but if
people
you have a
in-
deer in the wild, you wouldn't use like you would still call it regardless of like what gender it is, because
Yeah,
the
so-
whole
so
idea is that
exactly,
because it
so-
is a deer, because doe is identifying as a deer, like any pronouns besides its would be inappropriate for them. Is like the
But this is
thought
where the
process
question
here.
is. This is where I think we're having the fundamental disagreement, which is deer a valid gender? And so people in your chat are saying, well, what harm does this do? First of all, I don't think that we
Well-
need to say if something's a good or bad argument just based solely on if it does or does not do harm. But second of all, and maybe you can push back on this one because I would be curious to know. Now, I've been told that this is sometimes a bad argument. So you can tell me if this is shitty, if this is a shit argument. But it's okay. So when a trans woman says she's a woman, she is a woman. Based on the way that we understand what gender is, she is a woman. But if someone says they're a deer, they're not a deer. There isn't like a deer gender. There is no form of identification associated with deers that we have socially constructed that has some kind of societal role, an expectation associated with it. Now, in the future, if there were a time where there were like deer people, then maybe it could become something. But like, do you understand my qualm there, I guess?
Yeah, no, I completely get it. Actually, here's an interesting question: how many genders do you think there are?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question either. And I usually,
But it's
when
not
somebody
just about
asks
what-
me, well, no, because my point is, so when someone asks me how many genders are there, my response is always, I don't fucking know. And usually I follow that up with, well, I mean, gender's kind of a socially constructed thing. Who knows how different society's view of gender is going to be
But
like
we
10,
can
20 years down the road, you know?
Sure, but I don't think that this is the same thing. So what determines if something is and is not a gender? It's not just a form of identity, right? There's a difference between gender and identity. Like what I said in my video. Like, I can identify as a Christian, I can identify as a sports fan, but that's not my gender.
Well, okay, so it seems like, so we've got three columns, I guess we can attack this from. So we've got like the just broader identity column, the gender column, and the pronouns column. So like from the identity column, I guess, so where do you stand on the idea of humans sort of like identifying, not like in the trans way, but like identifying with an animal, adopting that animal's sort of aesthetic within like the realm of what a human can realistically do, and sort of modeling their whole aesthetic and their lifestyle to some degree behind that animal? Like, is this something that to you just kind of inherently sounds crazy, or is
No,
this like,
I mean, it
just a
sounds a little bit nutty right now, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't become a thing. Sure, like, again, I recognize that we do socially construct genders, but I just think that, like, I mean, it sounds to me like what you're basically talking about at this point is just furries, right?
I actually, so there's furries, right? And I think, okay, so here's my understanding. Furries are people who don't necessarily identify or believe that they are an animal, but they in some way have a connection emotionally with a anthropomorphized, usually anthropomorphized, animal-like version of themselves, essentially, and that can sometimes be sexualized or not. I don't know, but and then there's like otherkin, and I think that's also separate from what Doe.
So this is different than what gender is, then, right? So like when we say that someone is assigned, well, we say male, I guess, but it would technically be if your gender is a man, right? That is associated with certain expectations and social roles. So what gender exists to identify with that's associated with animals or with a deer or with other? I mean, I
don't
listen, I
know.
understand that people can identify like with an animal, but it's a different thing to say you identify as something else, right? So like even if we're talking about, for example, trans women, like trans women identify as women, they are women. It's different to be something that you identify as and identify with something.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I wanted to split the topic up if we could. I don't know if you agree to do this or if you think that inherently doing this would kind of muddy the water too much and
No,
it would, like, take away
I
from the
wasn't.
overall thing.
I
but-
actually didn't think we were going to get into like a super long form debate.
we-
I'm not even
don't
live
have
on
to.
my end right now, so I'm.
we don't have to. If you want to like not
would
make
rather.
it into a super like big like stream thing, like I guess
I'd rather
here's
talk
the-
to you about this another time, like maybe like another time
yeah.
I'm live or something. I don't want you to think that I'm like running away from the combo or something, because I
no,
do
no,
want
no.
to have this combo.
Hunter, listen, anytime I ever like bring you up on stream or anything like that, it's almost always complimenting the fact that I think you're probably one of the best good faith acting figures in the political scene. Okay, I promise you, I have no ill will towards you. I know that like regardless of what we disagree on, like you're
Thanks, man.
acting in good faith. You know,
And I know the same
confident
goes
in
for
that.
you, bro. You know, and I see people in your chat. I'm a little disappointed with what some of them are saying, calling me like a chud. It's like, guys, come on. It's okay to disagree and flesh out some of our disagreements. And what I said in the video is, hey, I could be wrong. I have yet to hear some good arguments, but you know what? I think Zan, you've probably made some better ones than I've heard for sure, at least thus far.
Well,
I mean, I had somebody come on there that literally told me if someone wanted to use the N-word as their pronoun, they could.
Ooh.
So
God, that opens up so many weird doors. Oh God,
I know
don't even wanna
because
think
well,
about
that's
that.
well, I know, and that's the other issue is that's because I recognize that does sound like a chud take to be like, well, can my pronouns be the N-word? But when someone says like, hey, if my pronouns are it, right, you would say, well, that's kind of dehumanizing. Well, then the counter would be, well, no, not if they request to be called that. So could you not make the same argument with the N-word? Because it's dehumanizing, but
presumptively
if
you
you
could.
prefer to be referred to that way, like, would it then
I
be
mean, like-
disrespectful to not call them that?
I mean, that's like it's the same line of philosophy as like if you're white and you have like a wife or a girlfriend or something like that who's black and she requests that you do like super duper like awkward bondage like kink slave play and you're just like, babe, I'm really not into reenacting like a whipping scene here, and she's like, no, you're gonna do it, this is what I'm into. Like, I don't think that's necessarily immoral. Is it weird and is it kind of funny? Yes, but I mean, I don't know if it's like immoral necessarily. I mean, there are people who are into like degradation. Like, I don't know if it's. I don't like the argument that like I don't want to use its pronouns because I feel like that's degrading. Like, I feel like
No, I
mean,
recognize that,
yeah.
and I think that would be probably a weak argument if I were like, well, that just sounds dehumanizing. But the thing is that it like generally speaking, if you were to call somebody else it, even historically, trans people have been called it to like dehumanize them in the past, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I actually, and I know your chat's like losing it over here about the comparison to the N-word or whatever, but I actually feel like that comparison isn't entirely bad because it's like calling trans people it has been harmful. It has been a negative stereotypical trope, but you're also saying that, well, if they want to utilize that for their pronoun or for their form of identity, then they should, and you should respect that. So I kind of feel like the same argument could be hypothetically made with the N-word. I'm not trying to argue in bad faith. I'm literally just trying to flesh this out.
You're completely right. This entire discussion about like the discussion that I guess you could argue by identifying the way they do that Doe has started has been a discussion about what is and what isn't a gender, what words can be used to associate with who or what. Like it started this whole discourse about what can and can't be an identity, what can and can't be a gender, and like it's blown up. People have been talking about this like crazy, and I mean I think it's probably a good thing. I'm glad we're having the discussion because like. I mean, I guess I don't know if I'm like misquoting this because this could actually be like on my part, like I'm just reiterating a talking point I heard on Twitter and it's actually not as well informed as I think it is. But like, weren't there like Native American tribes like in the past that had like two-spirit and like gender identities that were like really different than anything we would ever like consider? I don't know. It just seems like what we consider to be a valid identity and like and whatnot. It just seems like we kind of, if enough people decide it's valid, then it's valid now, right?
Well,
like I mean,
yeah,
20
that
years
is
ago,
kind of how.
Yeah,
I guess that's
yeah.
kind of how gender works. But again, it sort of also seems weird because I don't know. I feel like this might sound bad faith, but it's like the whole gender abolition thing. It seems like we're like adding more genders instead of getting rid of the concept of gender entirely.
I don't know if that's what gender abolitionism is necessarily meant to do. I think the purpose of gender abolition more so is meant to break down our belief of what gender is and what gender can be, and in order to replace that system with a more individualized system of identification. And I think that's, in essence, exactly what Doe has done. I haven't really met very many other people out there who identify with, like, its pronouns and you know, deer, like, identifies with a deer. Like, I haven't met very many people who
I mean, yeah,
go that way. So
I see people saying it's about breaking down gender roles. So maybe the whole gender abolition thing isn't so much about literally just getting rid of gender, but rather just changing what we understand gender to be, maybe.
Yeah, it could be that as well. I guess, like, to avoid the chat from staying too bad following this discussion, because we gotta simmer them down, Hunter. We gotta make sure they're not all pissy.
Well, I see them getting really mad. I mean, I feel that
I'm.
I'm asking questions. I'm trying to understand here. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I mean, I don't feel that I'm coming in here very hot, but
Yeah. Okay. So, chat, I want to make this very clear. Okay. Even if we disagree with Hunter right now, he's a good guy. Okay.
Be nice. Okay.
His interests are in the best places, okay? As long as if we make our arguments right, okay?
We're really not that
he'll
mad.
recognize it.
Well, it scared me enough, okay, guys? So you're mad enough for me.
Tone can be hard to get across. My chat, it is. Listen, I banned people for like misreading tone before, and I felt embarrassed about it. It happens, but I guess.
It's okay. I've done the same thing. Have you ever banned someone in chat who's like responding to someone else, and then you think they're insulting you?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, get out of here, prick! And then you like ban them, and you're like, oh fuck.
I almost did that today. Someone was shit talking like a YouTuber I was responding to, and it sounded similar to an insult like trolls would often put into my chat, and I almost banned this person from YouTube chat, but I read up to their like previous message, and they'd posted like a community relevant meme or something, like just something that hinted me in that this person's an actual fan, and there's been a misunderstanding, and that I almost banned one of those people today.
Oh shit.
I guess to avoid the chat from being really pissy about you after this ends and everything, I think the thing that most people probably would have an issue with you on about this whole thing is I think you said this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just right away. I think you said that you weren't going to use its pronouns to refer to Doe.
I mean, don't they also request to be referred to as they them?
I know that on its Twitter, it requests its pronouns, and I think I've heard somebody say that, like, it said if you really must, they them is like the preferable second, but I mean, it's like one of those, it's I guess the thing that I said whenever you joined in that you took issue with was that the thing that you were saying reminded me of something Isaac Butterfield had said, and I don't feel like I was able to word my take very well, mostly because I just taken a nice big lung buster from this concentrate vape and my brain was doing backflips. But
now I kind of want to take a hit with you and just hang out. Maybe, simmer your chat down a little bit.
Yeah, let's just do media share and get high for like an hour. I'm
not
down.
even live on my end. I just, like I said, I saw you watching my thing and I was like, wait. I don't know. I think Hunter's looking for an answer that doesn't exist. The only problem with neopronouns is that they're silly. No, I think that pronouns do overall serve a form of utility, but I also feel as though having this brief conversation has at least pushed my mind towards being changed. I think that in some senses you're right about, like, what does it mean to abolish gender, right? Like, what does that actually look like? And if you're telling me that it's supposed to look much more like breaking down what we perceive to be gender and actually inventing new versions of what gender is, then I mean, maybe, okay.
I guess. I've always interpreted it as, and I know that Doe is a gender abolitionist. Like I'm almost certain it is. Like I've talked to it. Like I've been friends with Doe for a long time. But I think more so, if I can try to word it a little better, the general idea behind gender abolitionism seems to be to break down the rigid bimodal or binary, essentially, right? The rigid binary or whatever, that if you consider non-binary to be like a third gender and that's it, to break down that generally viewed structure of what gender is in our society and what identity is in our society, and broadening that to the point where individual people can sort of choose what their identity is for themselves without the sort of general structure, which right now is one of a binary or three, as we're getting a little bit more inclusive of non-binary people. But people always just say non-binary like it's a third gender, not like it's an entire category in and of itself, because that's what it's supposed to be.
So would Doe technically fall under being non-binary then?
Technically, yeah. Because non-binary is an umbrella term.
I mean, I'm still gonna keep my video up for now because I still overall agree with the general utility kind of shit. But if you're cool with it, tomorrow I'm going live tomorrow. I might air this right here, this recording, because I think we made some good headway, and I also want to see people see me change my mind a little bit on stuff, and I guess I don't feel okay. What I'll say is I don't feel as though my mind has been like changed. Like I don't think that I'm gonna like go and delete my video and like walk back what I said, but I do think that I am loosening what I was like my stance before. I don't think that I'm as firm on it as I maybe once was. So I am gonna rethink some of the stuff, especially mainly the gender abolition thing. I think that's probably the best thing so far.
And you acted, and I know that you're genuine. You're actually concerned in finding
well, also,
out.
I still think that there's a strong point to be made about the utility of pronouns and everything else. Mm-hmm. I think that I'll probably end up falling somewhere in the middle of my original take and kind of what you're telling me here. Probably just loosening up a little bit on how rigid I guess it has to be.
I get. Oh, do you mind if I just make one? There was a point that I wanted to finish from a second ago, but I was making it originally whenever you first got into the stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you I think you said in your video that like you don't want any of your fans to go harass Doe or go out of their way to go like shit talk them or anything like that, or or anything like that. But you don't agree with the its pronouns thing. And while I don't think it's I want to be clear that when I compare this, I'm not comparing it in intent or in harm caused or the degree to which to misinformation. But it kind of reminded me of like when I'd hear an argument from someone like Isaac Butterfield. That was the example that I gave. Isaac Butterfield, Australian kind of right-wing-ish YouTuber, yeah. He's made that exact argument about just trans people broadly, that I've got no problem with how you identify, what you want to do with your life. I really don't care. And frankly, I don't want any of my fans going out of their way to harass any trans people or anything like that. But you can't expect me to be okay with you changing the definitions of words to say that a man is a woman and a woman is a man. And obviously you're not making an argument even close, at least in my opinion, to as wrong as what Isaac Butterfield would in this case, but it does sound similar to me how you're saying, like how it's not getting across how you're saying, don't harass this person, don't go out of your way to like upset them, but I'm not going to use their pronouns because they're not complaining about necessarily being harassed.
Well,
by
I thought that they also, maybe I should have,
Yeah.
I thought that they also used they them pronouns. So I guess that's new because before they were using they them pronouns, I thought. So I thought that it was like more of like the it's thing was kind of like a bonus thing sort of. But no, I think that other than maybe it being like aesthetically similar, these are like fundamentally different things because like Isaac Butterfield's quote, for example, would be misunderstanding the definitions of words. He's misunderstanding it because he doesn't understand what gender and sex mean and those differences and how trans people identify. He's the one actually who's misunderstanding already existing definitions of words there, right? Whereas instead what you're having here is, again, changing more or less the utility of the language. I'm not talking about, again, a conservative would be wrong in saying when we say she, her, we think that person has these chromosomes and a vagina or whatever, they would be wrong there. But that's why I keep kind of going back to the utility thing, I guess. But
yeah, well, I guess I didn't make the comparison that I made because I think there is a functional similarity between what you said and what Isaac Butterfield said, in the sense that like that you're misunderstanding a thing and he's also misunderstanding a thing. It's not the reason I made the comparison. I more so made the comparison for the crossover in, I think, a misunderstanding in the concerns of the person in question, right? So with Isaac Butterfield, he'll say, don't harass any trans people. I don't want any of my audience like shit talking trans people or like going and seeking them out or anything like that, as if that's the main concern of those that are criticizing Isaac Butterfield and his takes on trans people. And in this case, you say, don't go out of your way to go harass Doe or anything like that, when what would be more concerned about, like what would be considered to be an issue is that you won't use their its preferred pronouns. Dude, discussions about pronouns while I'm high and have been streaming for 6 hours get hard for me, okay? I'm going to misspeak.
I understand. And that's part of what I mean, though, with the utility thing, is it's like it becomes more like a nickname than actually serving like a social or language function. But I understand what you mean. Yeah. But I mean, no, I still feel like what you're saying is that they're just kind of aesthetically similar, because what I'm saying here is that, hey, here's my take on this idea of, can you identify as a deer? What is our understanding of gender? But I don't want this to lead to any harassment of anyone else. Mm-hmm. What Isaac Butterfield is saying is, trans people, invalid, don't harass them though, LOL. Like, I don't know. I feel like other than it being aesthetically similar, these are two like very fundamentally different arguments being made.
Well, I guess, and here's the elephant in the room that is obviously why a lot of people in my chat got super mad, and why some people in my chat got mad and were reeing, was that I mean, from Doe's perspective, that I mean, refusing to use the its pronouns is like for them or for it. Look at me, I'm breaking the rules myself. For it, that's like just telling any like binary trans person that you refuse to use their preferred pronouns. Like that's that's how it feels.
Oh, okay, wait. So this would go back again to the discussion we were already having, which is
that's why people in chat are going to be mad.
Gender? Is it a valid gender, right? So that's where it would go back again on like, what is gender? How is it created? How do you identify with gender? Like, these are all questions. I know people are saying, like, just respect LOL or whatever, and that's fine. I think, obviously, having the approach that, hey, I might not understand, but I'm just going to be respectful, I think is probably a good take. But I do take issue with, I guess this isn't anything you've said, but with your chat acting as if, like, trying to flesh these questions out or looking into the nuance here is somehow, like, a bad thing, I guess. But...
yeah, I mean, I wasn't actually making an argument there. The reason I brought that up was mostly because I was just like, I think this is the reason the chat's upset, more so than like any like disagreement in terms of like the real like disagreement there.
I mean, I like fighting with chat. It's just, you know.
Oh, fighting with chat's always fun. If you want, I can come on tomorrow if you want to elaborate when we're not like both high and tired, and like we're both streaming and everything. We can talk about it more tomorrow, and we can actually like, hopefully I can like gather my thoughts more, because I didn't expect to be talking today. Ironically, like right before you came in, I was like, maybe I could talk to Hunter like after stream about this.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I popped in when I did, and I'm glad we had this little 40-minute chat here.
Holy shit, it has been 44 minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on Twitter now, shit talk a bunch, you know, talk about how Xander Hall is how you have a sex dungeon or something. I don't know.
Oh, well, I mean, I never denied that. Let's be real. Never denied that particular detail. I just denied having a sex cult.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, got it. Well, I'm still invited, right? I mean, just one little, you know.
Just one little CBT session.
What did you, before I go, what did you think of the Destiny actual Jake thing? I'll save my comments till after you tell me what you thought.
I mean, Destiny obviously destroyed him. I mean, Destiny's a very, 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 very good debater. Yeah. Insofar as the arguments, I think Jake is right that Destiny is, you know, the most salient criticism of Destiny is that he's an asshole and that his personality is off-putting to a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people just online tend to dislike him and act uncharitably towards him, is because he's very, very off-putting to many people. If he's an asshole to the people that you dislike, then you're probably going to like him a lot, but if he's an asshole to the people you do like, then you're probably going to dislike him a lot.
Right.
And I feel like that is the core of the argument Jake was making, but he didn't make it in a very good way. And if I were in his place, I mean, if I were in his place, I wouldn't have gone on and debated Destiny anyway on anything having to do with his like personal life or his personality. But I mean, I would have argued, had I had to be in his place, that the simple basis of my argument would have been, you do a lot of things, and I think you would even admit this yourself, that a lot of people find off-putting and they think you're an asshole because of it, and this is what lends them to act uncharitably, and this is just what's going to happen when you act as a divisive figure in the community. And this is just sort of an expected outcome. You are purposefully a provocateur, and this is the outcome that's going to happen if you
I feel like
act as a
Jake's
provocateur.
like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I also feel like one of Jake's big mistakes was just not defining what he meant by toxic. So like, okay, so I mean, I like Destiny. I find his debates and everything pretty entertaining. I think that a lot of his takes are very thought-provoking and kind of like force me to think and consider like how I'm thinking about issues or thinking logically through shit, I guess. But you know, obviously it's not perfect, because I know that's gonna be funny because people are gonna meme on that in the chat right away. But that's okay. But the biggest problem he made was just not defining what he actually meant by toxic. So I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm more or less like, I like Destiny. I respect him. I respect Vosh. I respect elements of BreadTube. I also respect Destiny sometimes for pushing back on BreadTube. It's anything that basically challenges me, I kind of learn to respect in one way or another, right? So I'm like, okay, I can respect Destiny, but I also think that you could make an argument against him about him being toxic. The problem is like, Jake shot himself in the foot the minute he tried to make the "you're uniquely toxic" argument. Because as soon as you say that, then Destiny was able to successfully hyperfixate on the unique side of things. And there's no way you're ever going to be able to prove that Destiny's community is unique in toxicity as opposed to any other political commentary's community.
It's an impossible claim to make. It may be, maybe it's even true, and trust me, it's a feeling I have. Like, I feel like Destiny's community has a unique type of toxicity that it engages in when, you know, people in Destiny's community get toxic, but I could never prove this. I have plenty of feelings when it comes to that I would never, ever even begin. I have a lot of feelings about a lot of things I would never even voice in a debate because I couldn't back them up with, like, hard evidence. I just feel that way, but I feel very strongly that way. Right. And I just don't bring it up because, fuck, why would I do that? It's irresponsible, and I'd get fucking destroyed.
Do you ever think about how you would argue? Like, even if you don't agree with the position, do you ever think about how you would, like, argue for that position? Like,
yeah, all the time.
I was thinking today, how would I argue against Destiny and try to argue with him about him being toxic? Like,
I do it the reverse. I try to plan out how's my opponent in a debate coming up or in a possible hypothetical debate, how would they argue? And I try to, like, predict every way the debate could go from their perspective. Like, do I know enough of my enemy's position to, like, almost perfectly predict their position? And I'll say one thing. Lately, I've gotten very, very good at predicting. Like, as I've gotten better at debating, I've gotten better at predicting what my enemy, like my opponent's position is going to be before the debate even happens. And that's sort of been a way that I've started to gauge, like, fuck, I am getting good at this, you know?
Yeah.
Because it is all practice.
Debate's a fun thing. I mean, I got fucking wrecked in, like, multiple different debates that I did at first, but then, you know, I just kind of set my mind to it. And I also had a couple good combos with Vosh. You know, he gave me some good rhetoric advice. Do
you ever feel like almost a little bit doomer pilled on how a lot of people in the the political space treat debate? Like, maybe this is more of my own personal experience, but like, and I think this might be the case for you too a little bit, although not as much as me. So I don't have any experience outside of streaming, and just like outside of the day I started streaming and doing this whole political debate thing, I have had no experience with debate, public speaking, politics, anything like that. I've learned everything along the way, and naturally that means all of your failures are going to be visible to the public as well. And so based on, I feel like, a few debates that I've done where I perform poorly, a lot of people I see have just like based their opinion on my debate skill from that. And they'll completely disregard my more recent debates where I'd argue I've performed quite well. And I wonder if that's happened to you.
I mean, it happened, like, of course, it also depends which debate you lost. So, like, unfortunately for me, like, one of my really bad debate performances was on Tim Pool, of all places, where it's, like, the most fucking exposure possible. So, that sucks. Like, that's gonna stick, right? So I'll still, yeah, I'm leagues ahead of where I was last year when I was on there. Like, I was so nervous. I didn't know how to be rhetorically effective at all. I didn't know how to steer a conversation. Like, I didn't know even the basics of anything. And yeah, no, I just think that, I mean, even now, yeah, I'll get comments. It's like, remember when Tim Pool wrecked you? It's like, dude, I've done like 600 debates since then that I've like obliterated. Come on. Like, just stop, bro. Give it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think if they're holding on to that, like, it is true. And the thing is, though, sometimes I mess up and end up basing too much of my like expectation on people. I think based on their debate performance also. It's just, yeah, you got to be careful. It's something I've noticed is that sometimes I think people, and I've even sometimes fallen into this, is that being rhetorically effective and being principled are not at all mutually exclusive. And I know it's very obvious, or they're not connected even. And I know it sounds very obvious, but like when you see someone who's really good at arguing and then they're able to argue their position consistently really well, oftentimes you can like mistake that for meaning they're really principled. And it doesn't mean they're not principled, but I just think that sometimes I'll see someone like fuck up in a debate and then I'll take from that they're not principled, which isn't fair because maybe they're just not rhetorically effective, right?
Yeah. Debating is legitimately a skill, and I think once you're good enough at it, I think you could theoretically debate almost any position and win the debate. Because, I mean, when it comes to what we do, the debate isn't won by who is correct. The debate's won by who, was the most rhetorically effective, who got the most... Honestly, it's decided by who has the larger audience, or what audience, by that proxy, has the most sway in saying who won, who lost, right? And that's usually how it's decided, at least by the... I don't know.
I mean, there have definitely. I guess I would ask you this question: when you do debates, do you like pretty much every debate I do, even ones that I go and look back on? I'm like, wow, I think I did really good in that debate. Whenever I get off, I'm like, ugh, I feel like I didn't do that good. Like, I always have the feeling that I didn't actually do that good.
Yeah, you always know. That's why, I feel like. That's why I was kind of defensive when it came to the Lauren Southern thing, because even Lauren Southern messaged me after that and was like, you did pretty good, and complimented me, especially I know a compliment from who like Lauren Southern isn't going to be a very high praise from any left wing people, but I mean
it's just
I feel like a lot of people kind of people on the left went crazy after I talked to Lauren Southern. They were like, I platformed her and shit. And I was like, I platformed her? And I was like, I feel like a lot of people gave me
You're like
after
she
that Lauren
platformed me, man.
Yeah, she's like, bro, I gained 200 subs that day. Yeah, I did actually. I gained a bunch. Ironically enough, I got so many messages from Lauren Southern fans after that debate saying they started watching my content after it. And so I was getting a mix of half my feed were lefties saying I'm shit because I didn't effectively debate Lauren Southern enough, so I just irresponsibly platformed her or whatever. And then the other half of my notifications were DMs from ex-Lauren Southern fans saying they were watching my content now and they thought I did well. And I was like, oh my god, this is so bizarre. What a mix. I never expected this outcome. And it ended up being, the reason I found out so many left-wing people were so mad at me after that is because Lance from the Surfs had been shit-talking me and that debate and the fact I was doing it for a week and a half up until that point had kind of primed a lot of people to be mad about it on that day.
I'm chill with everyone. I'm not coming on here to start fucking shit-talking other content creators or whatever, But that's a little ironic.
Yeah, well, it was before Lance debated Lauren Southern. That's the thing. And then Lance proceeded to debate JF and Lauren Southern right after that. And then what happened there happened.
And then it was he's never allowed to accuse anyone else of irresponsibly platforming Lauren Southern ever again.
Yeah. Did you see the JF one?
You know what? I didn't watch the entire JF one. I need to watch that actually.
Oh, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
It did not go well. That was a tough one. That was a tough one to sit through for sure.
That's
I
how
think
I felt
that
about yesterday's debate, honestly. I felt like there was so many ways that Jake could have made his argument and then just kind of fell flat. And the other thing I don't understand is I don't know. I'm not trying to like shit talk Jake either. You know, Jake, you're cool. You're cool, bro. But like, you know, it's just I don't know how you can not debate that well when you're like the topic is literally you attacking the other person pretty much. Like the topic required that Destiny begin on the defensive.
And you have to be on the offensive, which means you need to have your shit straight because you're debating Destiny on his own experiences. You have to be caught up on this. This is a mistake that I made. And listen, I don't know what current state you're in with Destiny. I don't know if you're like cool with Destiny. He's just kind of like okay with you or whatever. If you're friends, I don't know what
I'm chill
level
with Destiny.
you're at.
Yeah, I respect the guy. You know, I see his controversy, but like I said, I respect him. I don't really like pick favorites. Like I said, that's why I brought up Vosh too. It's like I don't care if him and Vosh are fighting. Like I respect Vosh for my own reasons, and I respect Destiny for my own reasons.
The drama, the one debate that I've had with Destiny was on. It was right after the like split between him and Vosh, and it was like all the drama everyone was talking about. It was like super spicy and everything, and it was like, oh my god, the Vosh Destiny breakup taking the internet by storm. And I ended up
I didn't watch that, Zan.
Oh, you were there, yeah. I ended up like seeing some posts, and I ended up getting pissed off. Like, bro, why the fuck is Destiny claiming Vosh told his audience to like go report his stuff? Like, this isn't a thing that happened, and I'd actually gotten some of the accusations wrong to Destiny's benefit. But, and the reason I bring this up is Destiny did do a thing that really disappointed me when we had our debate. And that was, and I know why he did it, but I don't think it's an excuse. So following his unpartnering, Destiny in his chat told his fans to find any, like if they find any bugs or exploits or anything like that with Vosh's website, vosh.gg, to abuse / exploit them in any way like possible. And that was the actual quote in Destiny's chat. He was encouraging his audience to find issues with Vosh's website and try to like take it down. And when I went on Destiny's stream and I confronted him about this, he said, no. When I said that, I meant for my fans to find bugs on Vosh's website and report them to White Nervosa so they can be fixed and patched out. And I didn't know this because I couldn't see his chat, but meanwhile, his whole chat was spamming LaRue's, the one. It's like the Kappa emote, but specifically Destiny's emote for Kappa, like his variation. And then like after the debate, one of my fans ended up linking me like the evidence that yes, he did tell his audience to do that. It turns out he just lied to my face about that, and I didn't like that. After that, I was like, Destiny, dude, you don't. You're not someone who needs to lie to win a debate. That really disappointed me.
Yeah.
I know why he did it, because he could have gotten banned from Twitch if he like owned up to it, but like still, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, I took a long rip in honor of our talking.
I wish I could take a dab hit right now, but the last hit I took ended up using up my battery. I got to plug it in.
Oh yeah, I guess you're big into the vapes, right?
My weed journey has been so wild. So I tried weed for the first time like a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, when I turned 21 and I moved to California. It was legal, and I was like, fuck it, I'm legal, it's legal, let's try some weed. So I started by smoking a joint, and I took like, to be fair, my girlfriend warned me to stop, and it was like really gross. I didn't like the flavor. It was harsh, but I took like a bunch of hits because I wanted to make sure I got really high my first time. And I proceeded to dance around the house for 30 minutes and then vomit on the floor.
Oh, that's not.
And then that happened the next five times I smoked weed. Exactly that. I danced around and then I threw up. And I smoked too much. And then eventually I moved on to these flower vapes. I don't know if you can see my my screen right now, because I'm actually showing it on stream. It's really broken and fucked up right now. I literally have like the cap. There's a reason I don't use it anymore, and I switched to these babies right here, the little cartridges. Basically, you take the tip off of this thing, you put flour in there after you've ground it up, you turn it on after you've charged it, and it heats the flour up and sucks the vapor out, and it's just the vapor that you smoke. And then when you're done with it, there's just the dried up flour in there left over, and it's super, super smooth, and it's basically just vaping weed, but you're vaping flour, so it's weaker. And then I ended up upgrading to concentrate cartridges, and like I've been doing this for maybe 6-7 months at this point. like hitting these cartridges and like even now, and I do this literally every day, even now, like two or three minimum hits from this thing, and I'm going on an adventure. You know, I turn off all the lights in my room, I put on some music, I play some video games, 2 or 3 hits from this thing, and I'm going on an adventure for the next 30 minutes.
Oh man, that's gotta be a blast, man. All right, well, hey, I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on last minute. Get some rest. Sounds like you had a long stream. I got a split. So yeah, man. All right, hopefully we can talk again about this though, a little bit more in depthly.
Yeah, have a good night, my man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, sure. All right, see you.
Yeah. See ya.